Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. It said recording in progress. That's why I started. Welcome to October 25th, 2023 Joint Animal Service Commission meeting. I'm calling it to order. It looks like we have a portion of our board members here. I'm Lisa Parsley from the City of Olympia. I'm chair. I'm going to pass it off to Peter and Michael on the screen, and then we'll go to the room to introduce ourselves.
Peter Agard, the City of Olympia. Oh, Peter, the City of Stormwater.
Michael?
Hi. Yeah, this is Mike Murphy from the Thurston County Humane Society.
Thank you. Sarah, can you lead it off for the room, please?
Absolutely. I'm Sarah Hawk, Executive Director for Joint Animal Services.
Joan McGugan, Behind Friends.
Vicki Smith, Deschutes Animal Clinic.
Shannon Kelly Fong, City of Lacey.
Looks like we got Ed Kunkel here. Want to introduce yourself, Ed?
I'm Ed Kunkel, and I'm with City of Lacey. I'm a council member, and I'm happy to be here this evening. And I'm so sorry that I overlooked it on my calendar.
It's a Wednesday. It's an unusual day for us, Ed. Don't worry about it.
Good to go. Thank you.
Okay, let's see if I can actually do this right, because it's thrown me every time. Although Sarah seems to be on the phone. Are we good? We keep going? Okay, I would like to get the approval of the agenda, previous meeting minutes, and consent items, if possible.
So move.
Second.
Any changes, conversations, polls? All righty, hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, moving on to public comment. Sarah, do we have anybody?
No, we did not have anybody submit public comment, nor did we have anybody registered to comment.
Okay, excellent. It looks like we're moving right on to the business item, which is the 2024 animal service budget presentation with Sarah.
All right, give me one moment to share my screen.
While you're doing that, I'll just tell the rest of the commission that Sarah showed up at the finance committee meeting in Olympia and did a knockdown, wonderful presentation for us. And the finance committee was very pleased with it.
Well, thank you. I'm glad that they enjoyed the presentation. You guys all know I love talking about animal services, which is a good thing since I am presenting on the budget tonight. So today we're going to be talking about several different components of the budget, key accomplishments for 2023, significant trends that we are seeing within the budget, a fund overview and budget summary for 2024, our revenue and expenditures overview, capital facilities plan, and then recommended actions. So key accomplishments for this year. Goal 1, under becoming a sustainable organization with the capacity to meet the needs of the community. We completed the capital facilities plan with the City of Lacey, and we awarded the space needs assessment contract to Animal Arts. We will be, as we move forward with that, I will keep JASCOM updated, but we're very excited about the company that was awarded the contract. Goal 2, expand and improve animal care and programming to support our community's pets and people. So I am happy to say we actually met 2 of our key benchmarks for this strategic plan this year. So 20% of all spay and neuter surgeries are performed in-house. That was accomplished with over 200 spay neuter surgeries so far this year. And we were able to perform 14% of medical treatments and exams in-house as well. So we're very excited that we met those 2 key benchmarks this year. We also hit a percentage of our benchmark, which was a reduction in euthanasia of vulnerable populations. We considered feral cats a vulnerable population. So we were able to reduce euthanasia of feral cats by 5% this year. And we also increased placement of community cats by 231%. It sounds like a big percentage, but that's, in comparison to not having placed very many before. And since the inception, we've actually placed about 75 cats within our community cat program now. So we're very excited. And goal 3, with increased accessibility, inclusivity, and enhanced community involvement. We participated in over 20 community outreach events so far this year, including hosting 2 humane educational events with more on the horizon. We actually started training our humane education volunteers with a new program for schools, which we're really excited about. Teachers can check out a backpack with educational materials that works with their lesson plans. And then we have volunteers that are trained and background checked to be able to go help the teachers with this humane education program. So we're very excited. Moving on with some statistics that we took in mind for the budget as well as the assessments. So we, as everybody knows, we base our assessments for the jurisdictions on a per capita basis, which means it's a population-based assessment. And so we take the trends over the years, and this year's per capita assessment was based on the 2023 estimates. And so as you can see, there continues to be an increase in population overall within Thurston County. And there's been an increase of 3.77% since 2020. And you can see there's some significant changes, especially with the city of Lacey. They have now surpassed Olympia with the number of residents. And Thurston County has remained pretty static for the most part over the last couple of years. So incoming animals into the shelter. For 2022, our shelter numbers have increased by 4.5%. So this is last year comparatively to other numbers. This year, we are seeing an overall trend of an increase of 20% of animals entering our shelter over this time last year. Adoptions continue to be on the rise, as well as transfers are back on the rise as well. So adoptions increased by 11% and transfers increased by 60%. Which is fantastic because, as you can see, we were on a downward trend with our transfers and we have since picked back up a little bit. And I attribute that to the relationship building that Liz McQueen, my animal and veterinary care manager, has done with relationship building with the different rescues. Field response, overall field response decreased, while Thurston County saw an increase of 11%. And again, this is for 2022. So there was a shift in numbers a little bit when we went to full service of the shift of allocation of where our field calls were going. So total overall calls for 2022, we had 2,236 overall calls. And
Sarah,
then yes.
is this based on the calls that we actually get, or is this based on 911?
These are calls Joint Animal Services receives, not calls into TCOM.
Do we know how many do end up there and don't end up coming to us, so we don't even know about them?
I do have that data. I could present it to you
Next time.
at a later date, like next meeting if you would like.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. And so you can see over here with Thurston County that there was a difference of about 100 calls when we moved to full service specifically for Thurston County. Overall license sales, we did increase by 2% this year over last year, but they have been on a consistent decrease year over year. We think the increase this year is attributed to where we finally have had everybody go through the online licensing. And so now everybody's getting automated renewals and everybody is within the system and we're not having to generate so much stuff. So we think that 2% increase is because of the online 1 full year being with having our licensing module. Private contributions, we had an absolutely fantastic year. So as you can see, year over year, we've started to slowly gain more ground in private contributions. And this year, between so many donations coming in for our cat hoarding case in April, we were also a recipient in a bequest where we received $394,000 as a gift. And so that is fantastic news. And we were very, very excited to receive this bequest, thanks to Lillian Stuckey. And some of you might know Lillian. She was a pillar of the Thurston County and Olympia community. This is our fund overview. So this is our overall net position. We did increase an overall net position with almost $100,000 increased in restricted veterinary care. There is a slight decrease here of expenditures of veterinary care, but overall, our net expenditures have continued to increase. So we are in a very secure position. So some of the budget assumptions that we took into account for the 2024 budget is we did calculate a 4.5% cost of living, as well as steps in salary increases. We also, as a reminder, in 2021, we had the salary study where it showed that we had to make adjustments and increases into staff salaries. The majority of that happened last year, but we still are finishing off the last percentages this year, as well as this year, part of that adjustment, I should say last year, to help with that adjustment period, we did take a small portion out of reserves to help cover that increase. This year, we did not build in that with reserves. So that is part of what you're seeing when we talk about the assessments in the overall budget. It is still taking into consideration our medical staff. So again, since this year, we did not have a veterinarian and a vet tech on staff, we still have those reserves that we agreed to use to pay for that staffing for the first year, slowly working our way down. So most likely we'll start seeing that next year, but that was part of considerations when making the budget. So we also took into consideration an increase in revenues through donations. Historically, we are showing year over year that we are increasing the amount of donations coming in, so we did budget for that accordingly. Capital improvements. We are having to roll over the replacement of the adoption kennels that we did budget for in 2023. That is having to be rolled over into 2024. And part of what we will also be looking at is the actual expense of the kennel installation was larger than what we anticipated. And so we're building that into the budget. So where we had anticipated about $200,000 total for the project, after we awarded the contract, it is now going to be upwards of $290,000 for the kennel replacement. Thankfully, we just received a lovely bequest that will be able to help cover a portion of the replacement kennels. And we also took into account expenses based on historical changes in actual costs. Some other budget assumptions, our historical base for facilities and fleet maintenance. We did incorporate a field rebate due to limitations in expanding the field department this year. We also took into consideration our JASCOM strategic priorities. So again, the space needs assessment, the $200,000 that we allocated for this year is being rolled over into 2024 because the actual project will not take place until the beginning of next year. So that got rolled over from this year's budget. We will also conduct a governance structure study this year. We were planning as our goal to increase in-house medical treatments from 14 to 20% and increase in-house spay-neuter surgeries from 20 to 25%. So those were how we took into account the budgeting. And like I said, use of restricted medical reserves for medical staff to offset the increase to the budget, allowing for minimal impact to the jurisdictions for 2024. Joint Animal Services would reduce the use of medical reserves over the next 4 years. Our revenue overview, so estimating a slight increase in licensing based on 2022 and 2023 trends. We also projected adoptions to be slightly higher based again on what we're seeing from historical trends as well as what we're looking at this year. We're projecting a slight increase in reclaims as well as again private contributions and donations. Salaries and benefits do continue to be the primary expense for running Joint Animal Services. And we did carefully review expense trends and we made sure to make adjustments and an emphasis on effective shelter operations, standards of care, shelter medicine, efficiencies, and improved customer service. So key capital expenditures for this year, it'll be $290,000 for the replacement of the dog adoption kennels, $200,000 for the space needs assessment, and then we're estimating around $50,000 for the governance structure study. So a total of $540,000 are coming from capital reserves to offset these costs. Also, a use of reserves is again the $250,000 for medical staff, and then $260,000 for the field rebate, which totals $510,000. Donations and grants, we are looking at, so these are when we have expenditures within our restricted funding and grants. So we're estimating about $95,000 for vet services, $10,000 in our volunteer program, $7,500 for professional services, and $150 for our licensing assistance program.
Sarah, can you go back one slide just briefly?
Yes.
Okay, medical staff. Okay. And that's related to what you had in your executive or your director's report.
Correct.
Okay. Okay.
So budget breakdown, sorry. Budget breakdown, again, shelter operations is still the majority of Joint Animal Services budget. And this is so that we can continue to operate at a level of care that is required of us to provide for the animals, including medical care, also following standards of care for as much as we can. Field services comes in at a close third in this, with general services being the higher portion. General services covers a lot of administrative services, consulting fees. So all of our IT, the consulting fees for the space needs assessment, any software licensing maintenance that usually comes out of our general services. Grants, licensing continues to be the smallest portion of our budget. Since we've moved to an online system, the cost of doing licenses has decreased quite a bit since it's so automated. And then of course we have to take into account depreciation. So overall, 2024 revenues, we are looking at for operating budget revenue, 2,285,231. This includes the assessments. $158,000 in donations. We are utilizing $1,330,179 in our beginning fund balance, so reserves. And then, of course, taking into account the $56,130 for depreciation, for a total overall budget of $3,829,540. Again, this is looking at revenue breakdown. So we have agency contributions. Those are the jurisdictional assessments. Total agency contributions are $1,851,918. Shared revenues. So shared revenues are any of the additional adoption promo revenues, are additional contracts we hold, for example, like the city of Yelm or JBLM, and other revenues that come in, the coffee stand. Adoption revenue I pulled out. So that's not my shared revenue. I pulled that out. My apologies. And then reclaims, donations, of course, at 158,000. And then overall licensing contributes about 133,410 for all jurisdictions. Jurisdictional assessment breakdown. So there was an overall increase to the assessments of 4%. Thurston County's assessment is 942,758. Olympia is 356,174. Lacey is $380,030. And the city of Tumwater is 172,956. So our overall proposed joint animal services budget for 2024 is $3,829,540. So this is an increase of about $376,890, or 10.9% increase in overall budget over to 2023. We are recommending the use of dedicated capital equipment and medical funds to supplement the 2024 budget, as well as provide a rebate to all jurisdictions for field services due to the limitations of being able to expand that department. Questions?
Any questions? Ed, I see you unmuting.
Yeah, every time we talk about budget, or we talk about anything, that first and foremost thing that's always on my mind is the facility. And when are we going to reach a point where we're having serious discussions and getting aggressive about fixing that? And even my colleagues on council are asking me that question. When are we going to bring to the city council an idea or a proposal to fix the problem, whether it be to find another location or improve the existing one? And so that's first and foremost what's on my mind. The budget seems to be relatively balanced, give or take, but that's where my thoughts are.
I appreciate that, Councilmember Kunkel. I can tell you that we did potentially identify some sites, and there was an initial discussion. Shannon and Rick took to our partner jurisdictions of some potential sites to look at, and that is under discussion currently. And our space needs assessment, they will begin that in January. And most
right.
likely we'll have the results of that by the end of 2024 is what they're estimating. And
But I think this is all information that we have some working knowledge and understanding of. I think we're going to be shocked by the assessment. I mean, do you, Lisa? I mean,
No, I
it
see where
just
you're
seems
going,
like,
Ed. It's
the
just because,
assessment,
oh, sorry.
no, you're okay. You can finish your thought first and I'll.
Because the speed of government, I see where maybe this is where I'm going with Ed. I agree. I think we need to get the needs assessment from the animal, what was it again? Animal
Arts.
arts. But I think we could start the planning process of funding and looking at funding resources and in addition to the governance. I think those probably have to go hand in hand because we have to have, if this is a set aside funding for capital versus we stay an entity as we are. And if it's an entity as we are, this could take a couple of years to get the funding together. And so I think the sooner we begin that, with the understanding that we're basing it on Lacey's assessment and not the real assessment, and maybe buffer and conservatively what we need.
yeah. And I do like, I think we've chatted about this before. I do like the idea of seriously considering South County as an option. That way we have more capacity. We could probably find something reasonable. We can get probably more for our money being in South County. That and potential to care for livestock is also on the table in South County. Isn't there a location nearby what street is it on, Lisa? Where the county,
Our property?
the county building out there.
It's off of,
You know what I'm talking. It's near.
it's not off Carpenter, but it's
No, it's out towards Scott Lake, out that direction. Yeah. So I don't know. I think our focus should be first and foremost on doing everything we can to improve the conditions for our shelter. And it's not cutting it where we are locally. It's just not realistic to try to put a Band-Aid on that place.
So I'd maybe chalk this up, Sarah, to something we begin conversations in 2024, at least starting to look at funding possibilities. I know we cannot settle on anything till 2025, but just because it's going to take a while to get those put together. So maybe make that a work plan item for 2024.
Yeah. Agreed.
And it may be a piecemeal thing. You may buy the land first and then do a capital campaign. I don't know. I understand where you're going, and I can see your body language going, we need to get the report, but I also am worried if this stays a government entity, that it could be delayed significantly if we don't start having the conversations with all the jurisdictions, because it's not just Lacey. We got to get Olympia, the county, and Tumwater on board with this.
I completely agree.
Pretty certain if we had a viable plan that Lacey would be on board with it.
I think so too, but you know how the jurisdictions
The only concern, the only concern that my colleagues have brought up is who's going to be the local jurisdiction that's going to support animal services if they fall outside city limits, and I think we can navigate around that.
So that's parked for 2024, Sarah. Peter, do you want to contribute to this conversation as another jurisdiction?
From what I remember, the last time we were talking briefly about this, if my memory serves me right, I thought the drawback was if it was taken out of Lacey, who was going to be responsible for a bulk of the money. And we were, at the time, we were, okay, well, let's talk about this. Let's see what we come up with. So along with what Ed is saying, I agree that we didn't exactly come to a resolution at the time we talked about this. We just sort of, oh, well, let's look at this down the road. So down the road is now or tomorrow.
It's been down the road.
I've seen
this has been a
this.
down the road problem for 20 years.
Yep. And I've just, we got an armory, we got given an armory and we're like, oh, we're going to fix it up. But now we're having to actually fund it. And the community thinks we're going to have it rebuilt in the next year. No, we're looking at 3 to 5 years just because of the speed of getting all the money going. That's all.
So
If I
in
could jump
terms
in.
of,
Go
in
ahead.
terms of property in Tumwater or going to Side County, I don't know if you can find anything along those lines. I mean,
Find what?
an adequate property that can host or you could build something upon in that area. Because there's a lot
We
of
may need to
issues
look at,
regarding
yeah.
gopher and environmental issues.
Yeah,
As
we may want to look at Grand Mound as an option, and who the jurisdiction in Grand Mound, I mean, do they have a town council? It would be nice to pull
Well-
somebody in to have that conversation.
I think Sarah's already and Shannon have already started to look at some sites. So I think before we talk about sites, I think we need to hear about those conversations. And I also think we should be talking to the school districts because they have excess land, and with the drop in student populations, they may be looking forward to getting rid of some of it because their 10-year projections are changing dramatically. At least Olympia school districts are. So I would like to hear what Sarah says about that in the future. I think what we're talking about is a work plan item about discussing the funding in 2024. And Shannon, I think you wanted to say something.
Yeah, thanks, Chairperson. I think you actually just summarized what I was going to say pretty succinctly. Like Sarah mentioned, we just went to the jurisdictions and had an initial conversation on what could be some potentials as far as property. And we continue to have those conversations. This was, again, initial. So we'll follow up with that and give a report out to Joint Animal Services Commission at the next meeting, while we're concurrently also working on the space needs assessment, like Sarah identified, and just starting that contract. And then finally, what I heard the commission bring up is starting some discussions on looking at some funding options and models. And we can certainly do that coming forward here in early 2024.
Perfect.
The earlier, the better.
Perfect. And maybe I'm getting cynical and the longer I'm on council, but I think Ed's right on. I think if we're looking at, and it may be that it's out of our hands if we get on governance. When is the governance going to start? Is that in 2024?
Yes, that was part of the budget assumptions. So we did account for that. I did not account for a feasibility study as far as resources and funding for the area, because I was hoping that we would have more of a set idea, because the space needs assessment isn't just another capital facilities plan. They have literal experts coming in to look at the community, look at the programs that are being offered, actually estimate the number of animals that would be coming into our shelter in the next 5 years, calculate that with our capacity for care, as well as the programming we want to do. And then they would be able to tell us, by utilizing the sites that we give them to look at, whether or not we can build on those potential sites, and then what that cost is to build. Once we have that set cost to build and say, hey, we are able to build a 20,000 foot square facility with a public clinic, with a barn, and it needs to be on one of 3 locations because of the size, and it's going to cost X, Y, and Z. And they also give us drawings. That is something that I can tangibly use then to show the city councils, to show the community, this is what we're getting. This is what we need. And so I do agree, concurrently, we can look at some other things as we prepare. But the space needs assessment, while it's called that, is really more, they will be spending time talking to community members, talking to constituents, staff, JASCOM, city councils, talking about what is needed. And they gather all of that information to help us formulate what exactly it is we need. Because we can say, we know for a fact we need a new shelter, right? But to make sure that we're building a shelter for the future of this community is just as important.
I totally agree with you, Sarah. 100% agree with you. That is going to be the ultimate dollar. But I think we can make some pretty maybe guesses so that we can start looking at options, just what the options will be. For example, the city of Olympia is preparing to build a fire station, and we know it's going to be between 20 and $28 million. So we're already starting to have a conversation before we've even cited it, in which we have to do the study to figure out exactly where. We're looking at the finance committees going, okay, this is in our future. What is this going to involve? Is this a bond? Do we go to the public? What is this involved? And we're starting to have just a funding conversation, knowing that the actual numbers are going to be refined by a study that you're talking about. I'm sorry. I think you're right. And it may, what I'm worried about is I don't want to underdo it. So like say, if we built the best thing ever, let's say it's a 30,000 square foot facility. Okay, Sarah, with a good clinic. It could be even higher than amount. But you see where I'm going? It's just, I guess, the speed of government. I think we just need to be having the cities aware that we could be bonding or levying if it stays in the governance.
Yeah, I agree, Lisa. I like hearing that we're having conversations and we're looking at options behind the scenes. And you know, this new change may require us to build relationships with some of the outliers, whether we're going to you know, South County near Grand Mound or elsewise. But if we at least had some options and some ideas on where potentially we could go, and then just kind of, you know, make the public aware of it, that here's some potential options. I don't know. I just want to kick the spurs to it, I guess is what I'm getting at. I don't want to move at the speed of government.
And maybe, Sarah, your job is to slow us down.
Yeah, it's a necessity. We've got to get this done. You know, it just, the conditions that we have in the clinic are appalling. Absolutely appalling. There's no reason why we need to have such a shelter in such, you know, the state that it is. So anyway, I'll get off my bandwagon.
I appreciate your support because I wholeheartedly agree with the state of the shelter. So we will, I am sure we will come up with a compromise that we can do it accordingly, all the steps that we need to do, and perhaps not at the speed of government if we can help it.
I agree. And maybe Shannon's right. The work plan could include not right away, like sometime in the second or third quarter, starting to have a presentation on the different funding sources that might be available to us.
Sounds good.
Does that seem like a compromise, Sarah?
Yes.
Okay. And remember, you can rein us in, but just the good news is, like you just said, we're all anxious and supportive.
Absolutely. And I would much rather have a supportive commission than not. So I appreciate everybody's enthusiasm in getting us a new building.
One thing I had a question for you on the budget. You said it was oh, you gave it to me, and of course I closed my book. You said it was that how much of that is COLA increase? And since, you know, staffing is a good portion of this budget, how much of the increase of 10.9% is the COLA? Is it really just the 4.2%?
The 4.5% is COLA, but there are steps increases and things like that with salary. So the overall increase to the entire budget is 10.9%. I would have to go back into the budget to be able to tell you specifically what those increases were to salaries across the board.
Yeah, I guess I asked because I've sat through now 3 or 4 budget meetings in different entities, and we're seeing roughly that amount due to inflation and COLA. And it's not that the entities are actually spending more, they're paying more.
It is, a lot of the increases are those salary benefits, benefits and liability went up. Our liability went up by 25%, was it?
Wow.
And then also inflation with all of the supplies and medications that we're purchasing.
Okay.
Because we did stay, we're not increasing the number of FTs this year. We are maintaining the same number of employees. So most of the increases are having to do with steps, COLA, inflation of just costs of doing business.
And you said we got a rebate because of the FTE slowdown in the hiring and field services. Are you expecting in 2024 to fill that out though?
We are, and we can talk more about that in our director's report, but there have been some changes that I do expect that to change in 2024.
Okay, and then my last question, sorry. When are you bringing this back to the commission for action?
So November is our official budget hearing that we have to officially do. And then the expectation is we would vote on this budget the first Monday of December, which I believe is the 4th. But let me confirm that real quick for you all. Yes, it would be Monday, December 4th would be the vote on the joint animal services budget.
Okay.
So we do need quorum that day.
Yes. Is the first Monday of November is the day before elections, right?
Right, which is why we moved. So November is actually November 13th. We
Yes.
moved that because our meetings normally fall right before the election.
Because of our budget at the city of Olympia, they just put in a council meeting on the Monday before election. So I was going to have to bow out.
Yep, so it is November 13th. I did move it on everybody's calendars, but I will make sure to send out a reminder for everybody as well.
Thank you, Sarah. And thank you for putting up with that robust conversation.
Right.
Are you done?
I am
with
done
that
with the
part?
budget portion.
Let's hear about the report because I read through that and I'd like to hear more.
All right. So as I brought up in our budget presentation, we have awarded the space needs assessment contract to Animal Arts. Animal Arts has designed over 1,400 animal care projects, including animal care and control agencies and shelters, as well as veterinary clinics. We're very excited. Myself, as well as Andrew, our operations manager, have both worked with Animal Arts previously when they were working on designs and the space needs assessment for Arizona Humane Society. So we're very excited to be working with them again. And I can speak from knowledge and experience. I really do appreciate the process that they use in order to develop these plans.
And you said that was some public engagement too?
Yes, it does include a public engagement component.
Excellent.
Staffing updates. So this was one of my topics for today. So first and foremost, we have made a tentative offer on a shelter veterinarian. And actually, we're just to the point that we're sending now the official offer out. She has passed her background, she has passed her references. And hopefully, if all things come to fruition, she would start the first week of December.
Is she local or from out of state? Can you answer
She
that
is
much?
local. It's Dr. Stephanie Swearingen. So she used to work at Tumwater Veterinary Hospital. She worked at the Humane Society for Tacoma and Pierce County for a while as one of their shelter vets. And she has been doing relief work for us. She is our relief vet, as well as doing some relief for local clinics in town, as well as Northwest Spay Neuter Clinic have been her main relief areas. Oh, and she does Mason,
Oh, North
They're-
Mason.
their MASH clinic. She's been doing relief work for the MASH clinic over in Mason County as well. So
Wow.
we're really excited to have her. She, is a fantastic surgeon, game for anything, understands shelter medicine, understands that we're, on a budget. And she's very practical in her assessments. And so we very much appreciate that this relief doctor that we worked with so well decided to apply for the staff position.
Congratulations.
And another fantastic update with our field service officers. So you guys have heard me talk about previously the extensive background process that it takes to hire our FSOs. And it takes 3 to 6 months, and 9 times out of 10, our candidates aren't making it through the process because it is taking so long. And so after an extensive review with our HR and legal team, we were able to determine that we can move away from portions of that process. The 2 portions of the process that we can move away from are the polygraph and the psych exams. And this is because we no longer hold limited commissions. And so since we are not commissioned officers, we do not have that same regulatory requirement as a normally commissioned officer would have. We still are going to be requiring as part of their job description, the state training through CJTC that the Washington Animal Care and Control Association hosts in conjunction with them. It is one of the things we require our staff to do anyway, but we're just making sure that reflects in our job description. And they will still continue to be required to get their National Animal Care and Control certification to be an animal control officer. And so we're really excited with this change. And we're hoping that this will enable us to move forward quickly through the process. We have also made a formal offer for our 4th FSO, so our 4 out of 6. We did do an internal hire with one of our customer service specialists, Joseph. He will be promoted into the FSO position. We are, just as a heads up for the Joint Animal Services Commission, we are in talks with the Nisqually tribe to have a contract for a level of service. It's going to be in support of law enforcement as well as housing. And so once the draft contract is completed, I will be bringing it to JASCOM to vote on for approval before signing. The bequest, I did mention the bequest in our budget, that we were one of 8 charities named as a beneficiary from Lillian Stuckey. And so we were very excited to receive almost $400,000, and it is unrestricted funding, which is fantastic. And so this is the largest bequest and private donation we have received year to date. The adoption kennels, so we did award a contract for the replacement of the adoption kennels. Again, as I discussed in the budget presentation, it is higher than we originally estimated. But thankfully with the bequest, this is something that we are able to cover because again, those kennels need to be replaced as soon as possible. So we're estimating that, again, this is one of those things that we rolled over in the budget because delivery and beginning of construction probably won't be until the first part of 2024.
Very cute.
She's
And-
growing.
She is growing.
She looks like Tristan.
I do want to throw out there, we don't have to decide anything today. But most likely we're in December. I normally bring forth our budget, or not budget, our schedule for 2024 and what those dates look like. I would prefer if we moved our meetings from the first Monday of the month. From an operational and reporting standpoint, it's difficult for us to get all the data points needed in time for the meetings when they're on the first Monday of the month. It's also difficult for staff. The reason why I am the only staff member usually at these JASCOM meetings is because it's hosted on a day normally that none of the other staff are there. And so I think from an operational standpoint, I would greatly appreciate it if we were to move to perhaps one of the Thursdays in the month. I would even be willing, if it's a necessity to keep it on a Monday, maybe the second Monday of the month, so we have a little bit more time to get those data points in for like shelter statistics for you guys. Those are some of my suggestions that I threw out. We don't have to decide today, but I did want everybody to start thinking about perhaps what days might be better.
Ed,
Yes, so I know that the council is contemplating changing our meeting dates. We meet on Thursday evenings. I think the general consensus is we want to move to Tuesday. That should be coming up before council here soon. Shannon would know better than I would. But I would be open to, if that were the case, I would be open to Thursday evening meetings. And if we can post it later in the month to give Sarah more time, then I'm in game for that.
Peter?
Yeah, we in Tumwater, we have our meetings on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So it's the first Tuesday is city council, then the second Thursday is a work session, and then the third Tuesday is city council, and the fourth Thursday is a work session. So I don't think those are going to work for me.
Let's hear from the Vicky and Joe and Mike Murphy too.
This is Mike. I'm pretty open.
Joe and Vicky?
I'm pretty open.
Thursday's terrible for me, but that's okay. I'll live with it. How's Wednesday?
City of Olympia does Tuesday, Wednesdays, and some Thursdays. That's why I was hoping Mondays, but I understand what Sarah's asking and I appreciate that. So first Monday does not need to be, I could be open. I might be open, there might be a Wednesday open, but I'd really have to wait until the council assignments happen in January to know for sure.
Sure.
So I'll jump in on Wednesdays from the city of Lacey's perspective, where we're hosting the meetings. We have our historical commission, our parks recreation, culture and recreation board that meets, and then tentatively, as Councilmember Kunkel mentioned, with the council dates changing to Tuesday, our planning commission will also likely be moving to Wednesday. So our Wednesday evenings here at City Hall look very full.
Well, I am again, I'm okay with Mondays, but maybe we could nudge it to the second Monday of the month just so I have enough time. And I would point out that we do end up having to reschedule to the second Monday of the month a lot anyway because of holidays. So that might just.
I'd even be open to the third Monday if you needed that.
I think
Fantastic.
the point is to give Sarah a lot
Right.
enough time so that she can be ready and prepared. And she's right. We constantly are, for one reason or another, changing our schedule anyway. So
I agree with you, Ed.
yep,
I think this is a
I'm more
reasonable
than happy to be
request.
flexible.
Yep. And I could be probably more once I know what I'm going to get assigned for my interjurisdictionals and city council
Absolutely.
committees.
And again, it's just tentative. We usually just bring that tentative schedule in December so people know what to expect. But again, we don't have a meeting in January, so our first meeting would be in February. And again, we allow for that because of the appointments that happen in January. But some flexibility, I am more than happy to keep it on Monday, so long as we can bump it down a Monday or two, so we have some time for reporting and gathering data. Because sometimes, as you notice, we can be run about a month behind when the end of the month butts up right against our meeting date.
Yeah, I think you're hearing that the commission seems flexible, Sarah, and we can make it work for you.
I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much.
I feel bad that if it took until now for us to do what is actually good for you. I'm sorry.
No, it's what has worked for the commission for several years. So every year we just bring it up. We ask what is the best day that works. And you never know, if we get different commission members joining us, depending on how things go, we might still have to discuss it come February anyway. But for right now, I will tentatively plan for like the second Monday of the month.
Okay. And maybe put the third in case, but don't offer the first.
Okay, that sounds like a plan.
And you might want to do that because I don't know how the other jurisdictions are, but ours puts in during our selection at retreat the day of the week that it meets, whatever the interjurisdictional is.
Okay. Sounds good. And I'm finally going to end with a happy tale. This is Princess Betty's Spaghetti Boop. She's American Bulldog mix. She came into the shelter in March. She was adopted and then returned because that's when we found out she didn't like other dogs very much. But she loves people. She loves people so very much. And after we posted about her very colorful, outgoing personality on Facebook, we had a lovely family come in and adopt her. She is the only pet. And as you can see, what they said is she's doing great and she has molded with the house so well. She sleeps every night in their son's bed. She loves toys, but she also loves destroying them, and they are working on that. And besides, they couldn't be happier. And so you can see her snuggling with one of the children. Looks like she's walking somebody to the bus stop, and she is just as happy as can be with this family. And she was a staff favorite. We genuinely loved having her, but she really, really was a perfect example of a dog. Because she did not get along with other dogs, she was not doing well at the shelter. She exhibited lots of signs of stress, behavior issues that once she was away, they went away completely from the stress of being around in the kennels and in the shelter environment. And so we were really happy to share this. They sent us so many pictures. It was actually really hard for me to choose which ones to share with you today.
I love those.
Very cute.
Sarah, thank you.
Yes.
And thank you for asking for what you needed.
Of course.
Is there anything else for the good of the order?
Happy
Okay.
Halloween.
Happy Halloween. I'm glad you all could make it on a Wednesday. I appreciate it. We'll see you on the 13th. Do you need to move the December one to not the 1st? Would that help you on your budget?
No, because we've already planned for that. I can keep you posted if there's any reason why we would need to reschedule it, but we would know well before that date.
Okay. If there's nothing for the good of the order, you all are awesome, and we will see you on the 13th of November for the public hearing. And then again on December 4th, unless changed, for the budget action. You all have a nice evening and happy Halloween.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.